Hey, it's Chris, and today we're going to be talking about Siri tips, and you guys have been requesting all kinds of different videos. If this isn't the video that you requested, don't worry. I probably made a note about it, and I've got it coming up sooner rather than later. Hey, real quick before we get into the tips, you guys know how I'm always saying you should subscribe, and you should click on that bell icon so you can be in notification squad and be one of the first people to come see these videos. Well, today that is going to pay off for somebody lucky enough to pause their screen at the exact right moment. Now in today's video, I'm gonna be saying the words hey and Siri a lot. So in order to not drive everybody nuts that has an Apple device nearby, I'm gonna those out, which is cool for me, because I never get to. Now, I'm not sure that you could really classify any of today's tips as mind-blowing necessarily, but that's not the title of this video. I can guarantee you though that these are definitely going to be useful. Now just a second ago I was looking at the notes for this video, and it's like, on the one hand I could call this Siri 101 or Intro to Siri, because some of it, or a lot of it, is kind of like basic stuff. But on the other hand, as I'm looking over the notes, I realize I don't use most of this stuff, like 90% of this, maybe more, on a day-to-day basis, because maybe I knew about it or something, but I need to get reminded of it. So here you go. This video is to remind you and me all at the same time of what Siri can actually do and how to do it. Now I want to start today with a tip for Siri on the Apple TV. This is going to be the only Apple TV thing today, but I had to start with it because it's really cool. Let's say you're watching your favorite show on Netflix and you missed what somebody just said. Well, you can ask Siri what they said by saying something like, "Hey Siri, what did he say?" Or "Hey Siri, what did she say?" And then what happens is Siri will replay that scene with subtitles. I think it was just last week, my wife and I were watching something and we could not figure out what this dude had said. And we actually went back and took the time to manually turn on the subtitles. So it's really great to know that there is a better, easier, quicker, faster way. Here's something that I really hate. When I go somewhere like to the airport or actually anywhere with a parking garage and I forget where I parked.
Where's the car?
I thought it was here.
I know you've been there too. And the thing is, I usually have to take a picture when I get there, and then when I get back from my trip or something, I have to scroll through all my pictures, try to find that picture and figure out where I am. Thankfully, Siri makes it a lot easier to figure out where you parked. So if your car's connected to your phone via Bluetooth, then Siri can just drop a pin where you parked in Apple Maps. Or if you're in a parking garage, then you could just tell Siri, "Hey Siri, remind me that I parked in B7, for instance." And then when you asked where you parked, then it would be able to tell you. Hey, by the way, did you other Americans know that you can actually change Siri's accent to be either British or Australian? I've got mine set to British. My wife has hers set to Australian. It's like way more entertaining.
I'm Siri, your virtual assistant.
I'm Siri, your virtual assistant.
I'm Siri, your virtual assistant.
Now this next thing, I just assume that like most people know about this, but who knows, maybe not. But this is something that I use like on a daily basis, multiple times every day. And that is using Siri to set reminders. So you can say something like, "Hey Siri, remind me in 2 months when I hit 100,000 subscribers to buy those golden donuts that I wanted." And then that's all you have to do. In 2 months or whenever time period that you say, Siri will come back and remind you. It's got it handled, like you can just forget about it. All right, so next up, I wanna talk about music for a little bit, and all of you Spotify users that have been told by so many people that the HomePod is not really for you because Siri really works best and the HomePod really works best with Apple Music. Well, guess what? Even if you're a Spotify user, you can still use HomePod as what Apple calls a musicologist. So you can still say things like, who sings this song, or more about this album, or when was this song released. Also, when you're telling Siri to play music for you, you can actually get pretty specific. So instead of saying, "Hey Siri, play hip hop," you could say, "Hey Siri, play 90s hip hop." Or instead of, "Hey Siri, play some jazz," you could say, "Hey Siri, play some romantic jazz." If you want a really laid back experience, then you could just say something like, "Hey Siri, play some music." And in that case, you'll get a personalized selection based on your Apple Music preferences with some guaranteed fresh picks every single time. And if you're getting really tired of listening to the same old thing that you usually do and you want to get out of your musical rut, you could just say something like, "Hey Siri, play something different." In which case you'll get some music from the completely opposite side of the spectrum from what you're used to. Now, if you're really super into an artist, let's say, I don't know, Andy Mineo, for instance, then there's 3 things that you can tell Siri to do. Play the essentials, play the next steps, and play the deep cuts. Just to mix things up a little bit, let's use Frank Sinatra as an example. If you wanted to hear the biggest hits of his career, then you could just say, "Hey Siri, play Frank Sinatra Essentials." And if you wanted to hear some other hits that maybe you should know about, then you could just say, hey Siri, play Frank Sinatra Next Steps. And if you're a Siri is fan, that was super dumb, then you could say, hey Siri, play Frank Sinatra Deep Cuts. And then you could listen to stuff that you probably haven't heard before. I tried that with several different artists and I was blown away, like seriously surprised and delighted by what Siri found to play, stuff that I had never heard of before. All right, so speaking of deep cuts, let's get out of music and give you some deep cuts related to Siri. Starting with the fact that if you think that you felt a tremor, then you could actually say, hey Siri, was that an earthquake? And then it would pop up with some seismic activity from your area for the last 72 hours so you can know for sure. And then if you don't know how to spell something, Siri's really handy. You could say, hey Siri, how do you spell ambidextrous?
AMBIDEXTROUS.
All right, so at this point, I probably crammed in so many Siri tips into your head that you're not even gonna remember them all. So let's just end with this one more. Did you know that Siri can translate things for you into other languages? So you could be like, hey Siri, how do you say Huckberry is one of my favorite stores in French?
Huckberry est un de mes magasins préférés.
Huckberry. Hey Siri, how do you say subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to win another gift card in German?
Abonnieren Sie und wenden Sie sich bitte an eine weitere Geschenkkarte.
Hey Siri, how do you say that's it for this video, I'll catch you in the next one in Chinese?
如果这是视频，我会接下你的。
Hey Siri, how do you say later in Italian?
Dopo.
Dupu, dopo, dopo, later. Hey, it's Chris, and today we're gonna be talking. Hey, it's Chris. Ooh, okay. Hey, it's Chris,